I want to jump in and ask you, Shell is a really interesting look at obviously body horror, but women's body issues and image stuff. And I'm curious where you, as you know, you're an actor, which I'm sure informs some of it, where your perspective on that comes from and telling that kind of story and what you wanted to get across primarily.
Sure. I mean, I didn't have particularly intellectual ambitions, to be honest. I read the script a long time ago. Um, I It reminded me a huge amount of Death Becomes Her, which is a movie I love passionately, but it also really reminded me of Paul Verhoeven, who's a director that I hugely admire, but at the time was really sort of invested in and sort of academically invested in. And the idea of combining these two things was really exciting to me. And the process from sort of reading the script and eventually making the movie was sort of constantly trying to pressurize, I would say, that combination of ideas and sensibilities and seeing where we could get to. So it wasn't so much a thematic thing that I was interested in. I'm really allergic to movies that are about messages.
Mm.
Um, it's something I really have an adverse reaction to. I don't like getting told an idea or like a way of thinking, especially one that often is quite simplistic. So I try to avoid that. I mean, I've only made two movies, but they're both aggressively apolitical, and are hopefully sort of just works of pure fiction and not trying to sort of tell you off for anything. So it was, obviously as a theme that I think is incredibly relatable for everybody. I really relate to the themes of Shell. I think they're really super universal. But hopefully we're not just telling you sort of vanity is bad a lot, or because we know that already.
Mm.
And so I try to sort of avoid some of that kind of speechifying.
And you talked about Paul Verhoeven. Some of the interstitials with commercials and advertising
Yeah,
feel very rooted in that.
yeah.
Tell me about you called it an academic, I think, interest. Tell me about Paul Verhoeven's influence on you in the movie, what you really love about his work or his films.
I mean, I don't want to embarrass him. There's a journalist called brilliant film writer called Adam Nayman in Toronto, who wrote a book about Paul Verhoeven that I read. And so that really sort of made me start thinking about him. And I'm addicted to a podcast called Blank Check. Shout out to the Blankies. And they were doing a Paul Verhoeven series at the time that I was working on this. So I was just really thinking about him quite a lot in a sort of academic way. I'd never sort of studied his films, and they're incredibly dense, much more intellectual actually than my things are. But I really admired him, and I thought there was a lot to mine, and this is a love letter to his work, But it's also a love letter to a lot of kinds of movies. I mean, it's also a love letter to sort of be kind of Ashley Judd thrillers. And, I have a big Look Who's Talking fan, so there's some Look Who's Talking stuff in there. It's an amalgamation of a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's subversive in the way that Verhoeven is. I think that's another way you could put it. It uses violence and gore in a way that I think he did too. I want to ask you because, also as a performer, you're in an exciting project coming up with Clayface, and I'm curious. You think about the superhero world and entering into that and these ideas of like superhero fatigue and things like that. How do you, as an artist, stay grounded entering it, and what do you kind of look to do with your role?
Um, what I look to do in my role, I mean, I'm super conscious of, I consider movies a director's medium, and I think I've always, as an actor, tried to, for better or worse, try to think about the piece as a whole as opposed to um, something being a sort of an opportunity to express myself in a weird way. It's like I think that I'm trying to kind of help the movie overall, and whatever I feel like it might need from that part I'm playing. Um, and sometimes that means, being less interesting than the other person in the scene if you feel like that's what's required, or um, creating a lot of stuff that's not on the page if you feel like the scene might need some help in some way. But I try to consider the whole project overall.
Yeah, and it's written by, great horror mind also. So I'm curious if you kind of like see crossovers to some of your work in there, or if you connect it to, other genres at all, or because you do have a director's and filmmaker's opinion and background. I mean, you've been around your father's sets too, so you probably have a sense of all that goes into it, like all that fits in the stew. Does that impact your, when you talk about serving a director and their vision, does that impact your approach?
For sure. I mean, I've also been very lucky with the directors I've gotten to work with. I mean, I'm working with on that movie. I'm working with James Watkins, who's an extraordinary director, who has a very, very clear vision. And he's brilliant with acting. I mean, I've learned a lot from him. I'm constantly learning from the people I work with. Um, and James has a manner with us as the actors, which is extraordinary. And I really want to try and adopt a little bit going forward. I mean, he's so good at talking to us, and
How does
the
that
way,
manifest for you? The good, like, because talking to the actors is one of the biggest things a director does, right?
yeah.
You've done it with a couple of the greats in this, and you're doing it with him right now. But like, can you tell me how it manifests that what you see as being a great way of talking to actors?
I think all actors are completely different and require such different process, and so you have to sort of identify that. You have to identify what people need, what they don't need, which is quite a lot. You've got to do have your crew as well, right? So I admire people who can tap into your personality so quickly. But he does simple things. One thing James does, I don't want to give away his secrets, but he talks to you after every single take, something that I'm unfortunately guilty of not doing. And it doesn't matter how small it is. It could be just, picking up a cup and putting the cup down. He'll come and talk to you about what you did. And that's a lovely thing for an actor. You feel seen, you feel appreciated, you feel noticed. And we're all terribly insecure, so that really helps.
Which ties back into Shell, right? Because it's true for everybody. We are all,
Exactly.
in a way,
We're
there's a
all fragile.
director-star relationship constantly in the movie, right?
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. My time's up, so I guess I gotta go, but this has been really fun.
Thank you, George.